What's up, everyone? Welcome in to a bonus episode of the Your Celtics Source podcast. Normally, we do this after every third Celtics game, but given this weird stretch where the Celtics only play 2 games in 11 days with the NBA Cup going on, I thought it'd be a good time to do a couple of bonus episodes in this stretch where we talk about the NBA Cup, some of the games, the Thunder, the Lakers, the Spurs, and then on the Eastern Conference side, the Knicks and Magic game coming up. We reacted the other day to the Magic and Heat game as well as the Knicks and Raptors game, so you can check that out on the latest podcast. But for this one, we are going to preview the 2 games coming on tonight as I am recording this, with the 5 o'clock game between the Knicks and Magic, and then the late game between the Thunder and Spurs with Wemby returning, which should be a fun matchup despite the Thunder being obviously big time favorites like they'll be in every game this season. But I do want to start with the Eastern Conference side because this game, I don't know if it's a coin flip per se, but these two teams are pretty well matched up. Now, the Knicks are the favorites and should be the favorites. They're definitely in the class of their own in terms of the Eastern Conference, along with the Pistons. I'd have the Knicks and the Pistons sort of as the two best teams in the Eastern Conference. But lately, the Magic have been playing really well after they went through that sort of slump, about a week and a half ago or something like that. Obviously, Franz Wagner is out for the time being. Luckily, he, survived the worst of it. He's only going to be out a couple of weeks if all goes well, not the entire season, which is what it was going to look like when he went down. That injury just looked brutal on first hand. But that being said, Paul Banchero is still a top star in this league, and it hurts to not have your center. But Paul Banchero and Jalen Brunson are pretty similar players. Jalen Brunson definitely has an improved playmaking and facilitating game. Paul is not quite there yet. Obviously, Paul is younger. But they have great supporting cast around him. The Knicks are a much better offensive team, obviously. But they lack a little bit sometimes on the defensive end. That's been their struggle in the recent years. Whereas the Magic have been the complete opposite. They haven't been a great offensive team, especially when Paul Banchero is off the court. But their defense is always strong, which is why I think this game will be a fun matchup. Now, if Desmond Bane goes off and the Magic have a great offensive game, the Magic are going to win because I think we can count on their defense. It's the offense that goes up and down. And as of recently, it's been better, especially with what Desmond Bane, why did I say Damian Lillard? Desmond Bane has been doing for the Magic. But the funny thing is, this is actually the fourth matchup between these two teams in the last month. Just with the way the NBA Cup works, you sometimes have to play these teams an extra game or two than you would rather, had there not been an NBA Cup, just because of how the seedings work out, right? And obviously, this game is much higher stakes. It's single elimination, obviously, in Las Vegas. So there's not really that home court advantage, although I probably expect there to be more Knicks fans at the game, just because I think, in general, there are more Knicks fans than Magic fans in the world. But both teams, as I said, are playing like Eastern Conference contenders, and it sort of feels like a playoff preview, you could say. Now, I don't think these two teams would match up in the first round. I think they'll be too high up, or at least the Knicks will be a top seed, and who knows where the Magic end up. Right now, I think they're one below the Celtics, tied for the same record, obviously, so they'd be the fourth seed if the playoffs started today. So they wouldn't match up in the first round, but they definitely match up. Actually, they wouldn't match up in the second round. They wouldn't match up until the conference finals because the Pistons would play the Magic had both teams were to advance. But obviously, I think this game goes beyond just the playoff implications. Obviously, right now it means nothing for the playoffs, but when I say playoff implications, I mean the opponents that they're going to be playing. It sort of feels like there's a little bit of a rivalry going on between these two teams, especially the way they've been playing as of recently in the last month or so, where these teams have matched up several times. The physicality, especially the emotional moments for sure. That incident with Bane the other day, definitely draws some fiery spirits into the mix. And the Magic, the way they play, right? They try and muck it up for offenses. They try and get into your face. Handsy defense, very similar to OKC in a way. Obviously, these two teams were the best defensive teams in the league last season, the OKC and the Magic. So it makes sense that they play that style because it seems like that is the way to win NBA games defensively in the league right now. But I would expect in this game lots of early fouls. Karl-Anthony Towns is a different situation because he's going to pick up stupid fouls whenever he's on the court because it seems like there's no way to get that out of him. That's just the way he plays. He can be really, really stubborn on the defensive end, which is kind of weird because he can be a great defensive player when he's at the rim in his right moments, blocking shots, contesting shots, doing all the dirty work at the rim, but then he'll come out on the perimeter and he'll just pick up stupid fouls that he does not need to. So I would expect lots of fouls from him. And unfortunately, the Knicks don't have a chance to win when he's not on the court. So if I were the Magic, I'd be going at Cat, get him in foul trouble, keep him off the court. That's the best way to win the game because that way Paolo and Jalen Brunson can battle it out, maybe cancel each other out, you could say, and then the Magic team with Bane and Suggs and Black can do the rest of the work to try and take advantage of the rest of the Knicks offense or defensive players in general. But I think there are obviously a couple injuries. Miles McBride is going to be out, I believe so, which actually, funny enough, might hurt the Magic because it seems like Miles McBride, he's been a great defensive player, but obviously he can't hit free throws to save his life. And teams, we saw this in the playoffs last year with the Celtics, right? Just slapping him, picking up fouls, putting him at the line because it's basically giving you the ball back. As long as you get the rebound, he's not making free throws. So I think there was one game where he went like 2 for 11 or something like that on free throws. So just expect, if Miles McBride were out there, it'd be a great opportunity for the Magic to just take advantage of that. So, it might actually hurt them that he's out. Shamit's also out for the Knicks, one of their backup guards. I don't know if that'll matter as much. He does play a couple minutes. He's okay offensively. But I don't think that's going to be a problem because it is a sort of a playoff game, you could say, and Jalen Brunson's going to be playing, in the high 30s, assuming the game's close. So, they're not going to need many minutes from any other guard anyway. Obviously, for the Magic, Franz Wagner's still out. And Paul Banchero, he's coming back from injury. Obviously, the injury was a little while ago, but he's still ramping up. And so he's still getting used to being that, the one guy on the court. Now, there haven't been many moments where the both of them have been on the court. I think there's only been like 17 games in the last 2 years or something like that where both Franz and Paolo have been on the court. Just neither one of them has been able to stay healthy. But that being said, the load's all going to be on him to score the ball. Especially if Dane does not have it going. Right? Desmond Bane, he can go off for 30 points, but he could also have a night where he is, I wouldn't even say quiet, like he just won't even attempt shots. Like it's not like he's missing shots or anything, but he'll just, always sort of give it up and defer to Paolo Banchero, which I think will hurt the Magic because it'll be so easy for the Knicks just to, double Paolo, sort of force him into the tunnel mode, and he's going to try and drive into the basket and they're not going to get great offense out of that. Um, a couple good matchups, right? I believe OG Anunoby is probably going to be the primary defender on Paolo Banchero. Obviously, OG sort of shut him out the last couple of games. But can Paolo Banchero find a better way to either shake OG off of him or find a way to pass out of it or something? Because I think if OG Anunoby is going to be a great, lockdown defender on Paul, the Knicks are going to win this game easily. Reverse and Jalen Brunson will probably be guarded by Jalen Suggs. Maybe a little bit of Anthony Black, but if Suggs can get Jalen Brunson the ball out of his hands, I think that's the best chance for the Magic to win this game because, basically force guys like Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart to knock down threes. Now, Josh Hart has been shooting threes pretty solidly over the last couple of games, especially against the Raptors. But it's still one of those games where you have to, test it out. If he's missing shots early, you continue to leave him open. If he starts making shots, you're going to have to change up your game plan. But I think, to wrap up this game and then we'll move on to the other side or the other game tonight. I want to keep this episode pretty short. And then tomorrow actually we'll do a live episode, talking about the Celtics as well, but we'll also recap this game. Another bonus episode before Monday they play the Pistons, and then we'll do an actual episode after that game because it would be the third game after the Raptors game, the Bucks game, and now the Pistons game. But Jalen Suggs, I think, is the X factor for this game on the Magic side, right? I think obviously he has a massive home and road shooting splits, and you could, I guess, count this game as a road game. It's not really either. I definitely think there'll be a couple more Knicks fans there than Magic fans for sure. So yeah, you can count this as a road game for the Magic. I think with the neutral site, if he hits threes, the Magic will win, I think, just because, it's an extra offensive player that the Knicks aren't accounting for, but also the Magic really aren't accounting for because of how, sort of single-handed their offense can be at times. If you can get anything out of Desmond Bane, of course, but then any of the other defensive guys on this team, if you can get anything offensively out of them, the ceiling for the Magic is definitely going to rise. All right, let's move on to the later game, the Spurs versus Thunder game. I want to look at this game through the eyes of the Spurs because I think we all know what this game means for the Thunder. It really doesn't mean any more than they're going to have the chance and probably will be the first team in this brand new NBA Cup thing to win the NBA Cup and then also win the NBA Finals or at least play well in the NBA playoffs, right? The last two teams with the Lakers and then the Bucks have sort of went downhill their seasons after the NBA Cup. And unless there are some major injuries to this Thunder team, I can assure you this will not be happening. At least their season will not be going downhill after this cup. So that's why I'm going to talk about this game through the Spurs point of view and what this game can mean for the Spurs if they, one, obviously win this game, find a way to knock off the unstoppable Thunder, but two, even if they keep this game close and, maybe they lose in crunch time, but still that they, give Thunder a run for their money. Obviously, Wemby will be returning in this game, and that's a huge X factor. I don't know if we can expect a 40-point night from him, but I think we can expect effort on the defensive end. He's going to be able to, I think, cancel out guys like Chet Holmgren, maybe Alex Caruso. He likes to play a little bit in the paint as well. So he's going to do a great work defensively. The struggle for this team right now is going to be their offense. Can they score on the Thunder? Because I do think that when we look at this team, yes, the Thunder defense is fantastic, but if you can score on this team, you're limiting those transition buckets that the Thunder get. You are limiting the points off turnovers, which completely reduces their offense because yes, they're a better half court offensive team than they were last year, but it's still not the best part of their league, right? Or of their game, right? If you can make them do half court offense every single possession, you're going to have a better chance of staying in the game. If they're going to get free points on turnovers, you have no chance to win this game, which is why it's going to come down to the Spurs offense. Um, I think energy is a big thing, right? The Spurs have lots of young guards, rookies, second year guys that have to compete with guys like Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, in the energy standpoint, right? You have to be hustling to all the loose balls. You have to take advantage and get hands on every 50-50 ball because without that, you're not going to have a chance. You got to win the margins, free throws. You cannot miss on free throws, right? If the Thunder are getting to the line, which we know SGA is going to, whenever you get the chance to get to the line, which is going to be less than the Thunder are, you have to knock them down to stay as close as you can in that margin. Rebounding, same thing, right? The Thunder don't do a lot of crashing the glass. They don't miss a lot of shots, so they don't have that need to do that. But when you can, don't give them a second opportunity. If they miss one, you've done a good job. Now you have to execute and finish out the play. You cannot give them a second chance because you will not stay in this game past the first quarter if you do that. I think, speaking of quarters, coming out of half, a strong third quarter is going to be a key for this team. Can you win that third quarter and set yourself up for, SGA to play in the fourth quarter? Right? That's the first step of beating this team. You can't just beat this team. You first have to make SGA play in the fourth quarter, and then you need to win the crunch time if it gets down to that. Right? I don't even know. I think SGA's played in maybe 6 quarters, maybe something like that this season. 6 fourth quarters this season. Right? They win their games by an average margin of 15 points. Now I think that's margin has gone up with that Suns game. Obviously, Devin Booker was not playing. I think that game would have been, a lot closer had Devin Booker been playing. But as for the Spurs, I want to get into some of the players. Obviously, Wemby. But some of their younger guys, Stephon Castle, right? He's probably their offensive engine without Wemby on the court. So it'd be great to see, how obviously De'Aaron Fox is going to be, facilitating whatever. But can Stephon Castle be another option? I don't know. I think Wemby will probably be on a minutes restriction. Now, who knows if they stay to that, if this game is close and they have a chance to win. But that being said, he's not going to be at full strength, full energy. He's going to have to get some rest early in the game so that he can have that chance of finishing out a game if need be. And so who's going to step up for the Spurs offensively? Obviously, Luke Cornett will need to do a fantastic job on Chet when Wemby's off the court, right? I think this is a huge step or struggle for Luke, or will be a struggle. Now, Luke, obviously we love Luke in Boston here. But that being said, right, he's going against one of the best centers in the league. And Chet is definitely an offensive engine in the same way Wemby is, but unlike Luke, right? Luke will be okay on the defensive end, but he's going to be a liability out there on the offensive end, maybe. Unless, they can continue to work on that pick and roll, right? Luke was great with that with Tatum back in Boston, but, I haven't seen much of that yet from a Fox, a Castle with Luke, and it's going to be a lot harder going against Chet Holmgren, who, 7'5", whatever he is. Obviously that, but back to the Stephon Castle part, right? Can you get another option besides Wemby to get going? Because, like I said, it's going to come down to the offense. Can you score on this Thunder defense? And if you can, you have the chance to win, right? this team when this team is pretty much unbeatable if they're creating turnovers. There's just no way to beat this team. And a turnover can also be a defensive rebound. Like, obviously, it's not the same, but a missed chance, a missed opportunity to score, whether that's a turnover, a steal, you know, a missed shot, an offensive rebound, or a defensive rebound from the Thunder, you're not going to win this game. You got to make your shots. You got to limit the turnovers, and you got to play to your strengths. And make some shots, right? You got to make some perimeter shots, because the Thunder, they were not a great three-point shooting team last season, and they have just excelled from the three-point line this season. Something that, their role players that were not great three-point shooters last season are shooting above 40% this season, and there's not much you could do about that. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I think the early game will be the closer of the two. But that being said, the Spurs have the chance to win this game. This is probably the best matchup besides maybe the Rockets, maybe the Nuggets, that the Thunder are going to get all season. So that'll be the fun game to watch. I think that will be the more enjoyable game to watch no matter the outcome. But yeah, we're going to wrap it up here. We will be back Sunday, tomorrow, with a live episode reacting to these games. I'm not sure on the timing, but stay tuned for that. And then obviously we will be back to our normal schedule of every 3 games on Tuesday, with a instant reaction Monday night after the actual Celtics-Pistons game. But yeah, until next time, go Celtics.